What's the Toomey solution for Republicans who take the House, maybe take the Senate, maybe take the White House?
Yeah, so I think two things, right? When we had the shutdown in 2020 from the pandemic, I think it's fair to say we lost about $2 trillion of economic activity. So we dug a $2 trillion hole. We filled it with $6 trillion of spending. We goosed demand way beyond where it would have been at a time when supply was constrained. Meanwhile, the Fed, I think, was throwing gasoline on this fire ever since the pandemic lockdowns, continued with emergency policy long after the emergency passed. So look, I think the Fed has gotten the joke and has made a big pivot. I think they're committed to see this through. And what we've got to do is stop the wild spending that's been going on.
I am most certain that in the Senate of this United States, you are the most supple, dynamic mind on economic dynamics, financial dynamics, currency swaps, and derivatives. How do you explain to Republicans who have a static vision back to the 1950s that they need to be more subtle, more dynamic to build and grow this country?
I think you need to give my Republican colleagues a little more credit than that. Most of them actually weren't yet adults in the 1950s.
But they're pressured by a president who desperately, President Trump, who desperately wants to go back to another time and place.
I think he wants to invent a new time altogether, President Trump. I mean, and he's not the president now, and I think the party should not take economic advice from him, as long as we acknowledge there were some tremendous successes. I think the tax reform was extremely pro-growth, very constructive, gave us really the best economy of my lifetime before the pandemic hit. But I think the president's been dead wrong on trade from the beginning. So it's a mixed bag there. As I say, I don't look to him. I don't think most of my colleagues do. I think we have a better grounding. Yeah.
You said you think he's dead wrong on trade. Do you agree then with President Biden that they should possibly remove some of the tariffs on China?
The problem is President Biden has been a complete extension of the Trump administration in trade. Consider the only free trade agreement under Trump was to renegotiate NAFTA in a way that would diminish trade. We've never done that before. And President Biden, not a single free trade negotiation underway now a year and a half into his administration. He hasn't lifted all the 232 tariffs. He's resisting a corporate exception process on 301 tariffs. So no, I think the Biden administration has been an extension of the Trump administration on trade.
Do you think that your Republican colleagues would agree with you that some of these Trump-era tariffs should be removed?
I think some do and some don't, right? So this has become a divisive issue among Republicans when there used to be a very broad Republican consensus that was pro-trade, expanding trade, free trade agreements. That's diminished in all candor. And we've got friction on the other side too, right? Previously, Democratic presidents, whether it was Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, were pro-trade. We've lost that now, and so we've really lost the pro-trade consensus.
So you go out, you take the Pennsylvania train, you go out, there's that road turn near Altoona where the road turns 360 degrees around, the train track goes around, and you end up in Latrobe and you're having a Rolling Rock at a bar. Explain to the people pounding Rolling Rocks at that bar how the new Republican Party is going to make them prosper with foreign trade.
Well, I would point out, so the best economy in their lifetime was also the best in mine, which was 2019. Record low unemployment, strong growth, low inflation, diminishing income gap between high income and lower income people. It's really hard to find anything not to like about where the economy was. That was in response to Republican policies. It's true, President Trump was pushing back on trade, but he had hardly moved the needle in a substantive sense, right? We still have roughly the freest trading environment in 100 years. That guy at the bar with me in Latrobe, his wages were going up faster than inflation. That's not a bad place to be.
How do you break inflation then? Right now, the integrin, he's the only guy I can talk to from Washington who'll get this. On the x-axis, the integrin of a negative real wage, we haven't seen in ages. The thickness of our negative real wage is frightening. What is the Toomey prescription?
So it's the Fed's got to do its job. It's got to stay this course. With negative real interest rates as negative as they are, I don't think we get there, but the market is doing a lot to help, right? The backup in the bond market, the strength of the dollar in the currency markets, all of that is at least disinflationary, if not deflationary. Meanwhile, we've started to see slight declines in consumer purchases, right? Our big retailers have seen They've kept nominal growth, but not real growth. So that tells me there's demand destruction.
We never do this. Should we break the rules for the senator?
Sure,
I think we should.
Yeah, I think we should break the
Is the Fed going to blink?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, this is
I
what
don't
I
think
wanted
so.
to ask. Do you think that it's worth it for the Fed to not blink, to keep going, even if it means a recession?
The Fed has to stay the course here.
Even if it means recession?
Even if it means a recession. The Fed blew this badly. They had a paradigm that guaranteed that they would be behind the curve, and they were. Now they get it. I don't think this Fed wants to be the Fed that brings back enormously problematic inflation for a
How
while.
much do your colleagues agree with you? Because we heard Joe Biden saying that a recession is not inevitable, maybe not inevitable. But do people in Washington agree that right now it's preferable to have a recession than to allow prices to continue to climb at this pace?
So that's if it has to be, right? That's my, first of all, I don't think a recession is inevitable. I'd say it's probably a little more likely than not. It could be mild, it could be brief. Unemployment could rise very modestly from really quite low levels that they're at now. But we never get back to really strong growth and really good opportunity unless we get stability in the dollar. We're not there right now. That's got to be exercise number one for our medium and long-term prosperity.
Do you think that the banks, with the financial banking sector really under your purview, are prepared for a Fed that is not going to blink, as so many people seem to believe?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, as you know, there's a rising interest rate environment is actually helpful for a lot of banks. So I'm not sure which ones you're referring to. Obviously, those that are based more on securities trading, you know, it's hard to say, right? They may do well for volume purposes. They'll take their lumps in other ways. But look, that can't be the consideration. We've got to get back to normalizing interest rates, normalizing the inflation level, and then we can have strong growth again.
Andrew Carnegie built a school building at Carnegie Mellon, and he built it with a slanted floor so that if it failed, if Carnegie Mellon University failed, he could turn it into a factory. That was the entrepreneurial spirit of Pittsburgh of long ago and far away. You and I lived the 74, 75 crater that was Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Do we need to fear that? Do we need some humility still about manufacturing in America, or have we now become service sector so much?
So you know this very well, but I do think it's worth repeating. America will manufacture more this year than any year in our history. More added value in manufacturing. It happens in with different products. It's less labor intensive, but we are a great manufacturing powerhouse. We will retain that in my view. And Pittsburgh's doing great.
Senator, before we let you go,
yeah.
Who do you hope replaces you in the Senate?
You know, either one of these guys. I'd never made an endorsement. No, seriously.
Give him another rolling rod.
There's two great candidates. They are dead tied. I think this ends within a few hundred votes, literally, and either one wins the election in the fall.
Spoken like a true politician.
No, we've got really good candidates.
Is it going to be a fair recount?
It is, and to the credit of both candidates, they have taken the view that it's probably a good idea to actually count all the votes.
How many citizens are involved in the recount of some? These people nationwide are being abused. My mother was an election canvasser, whatever it was called. How many people are involved in that recount?
I don't know the number, but let me just tell you, I think some of our great heroes have been the people that did their job of whatever party, counted the votes, and went with the outcome they got. That's how the system's supposed to work. That's how it worked in 2020, and it'll work that way in 2022.
Senator, thank you.